my opinion back then, and again, I probably was one of them guys that, I've played rugby, so I know kind of more than the average Joe or know than people in the media. But statistically, what does it show, Ross? Does it show that the higher the tackler goes, then the more risk that the ball carrier and the tackler become in terms of a concussion happening?
Exactly that. And it's not, it's not surprising that people have sort of misunderstood that. One of the reasons why you have to be systematic about understanding and measuring the risk is because otherwise we are quite easily led into thinking about the thing we see most commonly. Now, the situation where the tackler's head hits the ball carrier's hip is the most common in rugby. It's the most common cause of head injuries. It's about 60-odd% of all concussions happen that way. But that is not the same thing as saying it's more risky. The difference is something called exposure. So in other words, how often could it have happened? So just stop me if none of this makes sense.
No, 100%.
But it's basically
the
analogy I've begun using is if you counted accidents on the roads, there would be far, far, far more car accidents than motorbike accidents. But you wouldn't conclude that cars are more dangerous than motorbikes because the problem is that there are so few motorbikes in the first place. So obviously, there are more car accidents. And that's the same kind of thing that's in play in rugby. When the tackler is upright, per 100 upright tackles, the risk is 40% higher than when the tackler is bent at the waist, per 100 bent tackles. And similarly, when the contact is higher, so sternum or above, the risk is 4 times higher than when the tackle is below the sternum, per 100 tackles. So when you think about what is then going to have to happen, you're going to have to try and swap A for B. You're going to say, do we want the tackler upright or bent? Because you can't have neither. Otherwise, there's no tackle. So you can't just take one away. You have to replace it. And when you're replacing it, the only way you can do it properly is to ask, which risk is higher? Is it the risk of going bent or is it the risk of being upright? And all the data from the study we did, the under-20 study that I did a small version of earlier this year, and I've actually just finished looking at rugby leagues, and it's the same thing. All the data shows that per 100 tackles, there is more risk for an upright tackler and a high contact tackle. And that's why the agenda, the desire here is to get the player bent and lower.